And originally we shot the whole pilot with John Posey playing the Danny Tanner character. And I had never been through something like that. And I thought after it happened, wow, this is how showbiz happens. But just kind of take us through, because we shot the pilot at Lorimar.
Initially I had two names on my list. I wanted Bob Saget, who I was friends with, who I had met on Bosom Buddies.
Right? He was the warm-up.
He was the audience warm-up
right,
guy. And that's an impossible job. You have to kill 3 hours with a microphone in your hand.
That's why I never did it.
It's impossible.
Too hard.
And I was amazed by Bob. We, as you know, can never stop speaking. So that was the perfect job for him. He just kept talking for 3 hours. Yeah. And he's so fast and so quick-witted and so lovable. And I just, I went up to him and I said, someday you should be on that stage. You could be a sitcom star. And I hope we get to work together. And he's like, yeah, that would be great. And I'll keep doing the warm-ups too. Which
I'll warm up my own show. Yeah.
But so it was Bob and Paul Reiser, who I had done a pilot with, and who was a really hot guy at the time. Yeah, and he was up for a show called My Two Dads and Full House. So I'm like, Paul, we got 3 dads, we got 3 girls versus 1 girl. This is go with the extra dad. Right. And anyway, so we couldn't find the guy. I mean, I'm sure you remember we had chemistry tests with every actor in town. I mean,
me and John auditioned with a ton of guys playing the father.
Yeah, and it was down to the wire, and we were wondering if we shouldn't postpone the pilot to mid-season, because I didn't want to shoot the show with the wrong guy, because that can kill your show. And John Posey sort of showed up last minute, and he had only really done a couple commercials. He was very, new. Right. And he did fine. He did a fine job. Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, I thought so.
And sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah.
And
he was.
The show sold with him in it, and there were no red flags, no notes, no what about that guy? Nothing. Right. And then out of the blue, Bob got fired
from the CBS morning program, right?
Right.
Yeah, I remember.
I was surprised that they wouldn't let him even read for the pilot, but I think because it was ABC, CBS didn't want to do us any favors. But anyway, suddenly Bob's available and interested. Right. And then I had a decision to make, because Bob's hilarious. Yeah. And John was great, but he's not a comedian. He was an actor. And, this is a comedy, and you want the 3 funniest guys you can get. And that cast was so magic, and I just thought if we could just get Bob in there, it would just be the thing that put us over the top.
And then John and I did a screen test with Bob on the Perfect Strangers set.
Yeah, so that was kind of a secret chemistry test that I put together. Yeah. So I had something to show people, because Bob was not an actor either. He was not. He'd done a couple guest shots, but he wasn't really an actor, and he wasn't Bob Saget yet. He wasn't super famous. He was just kind of an up-and-coming guy. So there was no heat attached to Bob Saget, and all of a sudden, I'm going around town to ABC and to Lorimar and to Miller Boyette and saying, I want to hold the press. I want to reshoot the thing. I want to hire this guy, and it's expensive too.
How did you convince them to spend that kind of money?
It was almost $1 million to reshoot the pilot.
Crazy.
And to break John Posey's heart was not fun either. I mean, sweetheart of a guy, and to recast at that point after there's pictures out, there's press out. Yeah. It was really
it was tough. It was tough.
Really tough, and I just had this gut instinct that from the beginning that Bob could be one of those classic TV dads. Yeah. He could be Ward Cleaver, he could be Mike Seaver, he could be, one of those guys. And I just fought for him as hard as I could. Yeah. I said, this is going to make the show so much better. We have to do this. And it took a lot of convincing, and they finally said, okay.
And then we reshot the pilot. We plugged Bob into all the scenes that John Posey had been in. And then,
we didn't reshoot the scenes that Danny Tanner was not in. So if you watch the pilot, you'll see the baby, the Olsen twins are like this big in some scenes and this big in some scenes because,
they grew.
4 months later, she was a lot bigger.
In that pilot, there are some really funny physical comedy gags. We had the gag where me and John are changing the diaper for the baby, which was, I can still watch that scene and it's still pretty darn funny. And then the scene where Jodie Sweetin's hanging on the drapes, going across. There was a lot of physical comedy. Did you decide that there was going to be a lot of physical gags in the show?
Well, all of that stuff was in the first draft of the script. My first job was on Laverne and Shirley, and they were Lucille Ball. They were the Marx Brothers. I mean, they were incredibly inventive physical comedians. So we had so much fun in those days just writing physical comedy for them because they were fearless. They'd try anything. So I love it. So I put some stuff in the script, of course, not knowing if it was ever going to get made or who the cast was going to be, if they would have any ability to do this stuff. But you guys were all like just game for anything and really funny physical comedians. It just worked out that. And we had Joel Swick directing.
Right.
Joel is also a guy who loves physical
Loves
comedy.
physical. He gave me that Dikalakapuka thing that I did in one episode. And I was
he directed my very first script at Laverne and Shirley.
He did.
First thing
and he had been around already for many years, directing a lot of sitcoms, right?
Yeah. He was a hot guy at that point.
Yeah. Now, during the pilot, I remember he got so mad at me. He came storming down from the booth onto the stage because I was goofing around, and I was like, this is the greatest job ever. I just get to goof around all the time, making people laugh. And I guess I had strayed away from the script and I was going off and doing some funny stuff and he wasn't having it. And it was right in the very beginning. And so, he came up to me and he's in my face and I can't believe it. I asked for actors and I get comedians, comics, you couldn't act your way out of a paper bag, and he's going off on me. And I'm just sitting there and everybody's kind of like, ooh, Joel Zwick is beating him up. And he stopped and he's right here. And I just looked at him and I said, what are you saying? And I could see that it cracked him because I thought, this is do or die. If I don't go up against this guy and try and challenge him right now, he's going to eat me for lunch the rest of this show. And so he laughed and he said, what I am saying is, all right, everybody go back to work. Okay, just go back to work. We shot on stage 15 at Lorimar, which was like this gigantic airplane hangar.
You could put an airplane in there.
But it
was gigantic.
Gone with the Wind was shot there in the old MGM days, like Wizard of Oz. They always told us that the Yellow Brick Road was under the floor there. And they kept saying, oh, we're going to pry it up for you guys someday and show you the floor and stuff. Was it just happenstance that we ended up on that gigantic stage?
Basically, the lot was full.
Oh, okay.
It was really full. And they said, that's all we have available. So we were in a little corner of this massive building.
Yeah.
And we were, we put in trailers and bleachers and sets, and it took up like 5% of the area. And then it was just vacant building.
Yeah.
There was this bad echo in there that we had to deal with.
And being a newbie, I was like, well, I guess this is how it is. You're way at the other end of some gigantic stage.
Crazy.
Now, of course, every episode of Full House, had the violin scene, and tearjerker moment. At one of our table reads early on, you hired a violinist to come strolling through the reading.
I don't know who hired that.
You don't know who did that?
I have no idea.
It was pretty funny.
No.
But not everybody thought it was funny.
So, Miller Boyette, Bob and Tom, they cut their teeth, on Gary Marshall's shows, and they followed Gary Marshall's formula religiously. And Gary would always score. If there was a sweet scene at the end of the show, he would always put music underneath it. So they wanted to do the same thing on Full House. And, I was editing the first show, the pilot. I'm like, this is really powerful. Like, these actors are amazing. This is a beautiful scene that stands on its own.
Yeah.
We don't need to put violins underneath this scene. We don't need to tell the audience how to feel.
Thank you so much for watching this clip of Full House Rewind. For the full episode, go check out the Full House Rewind YouTube channel at the link in the description. Thanks for tuning in.